Hey everyone, let's dive into this flow state idea.
Hmm.
You know that feeling, right? Where you get so locked into something, so absorbed
Right.
that the rest of the world just fades away.
Mm.
We've all felt it, those moments where time just flies by.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we get that on purpose? You sent over some really cool stuff on this, a YouTube video breaking down Mihali's book, Flow,
Oh, interesting.
and a radio interview with this researcher who seems to live and breathe this flow state stuff.
Oh, wow. That's a great combo. You've got the sciencey side with the book,
Right.
and then you have someone who actually applies it to their life.
Exactly. So it's like the recipe and then someone showing you how to make the dish. So the YouTube video, it defined flow as, hold on, I wrote it down, being so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter.
Yeah.
Total immersion, your sense of time gets all warped.
It's powerful stuff.
It does sound pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
But it also kind of sounds like something that just happens, you know?
Right.
It's like you can't force it.
Yeah, it can feel like that, like those times when you're so into a hobby
Yes.
that you completely lose track of time.
Exactly.
But the thing is, it's not just about those fun distractions.
Okay.
Sukhsat Mahali, he says that to have a really fulfilling life, we got to tap into flow regularly.
That's interesting because usually we think of happiness as, I don't know, linked to things outside of us. Like
Sure.
you get the promotion.
Right, achievements.
Yeah. Or you finally buy that thing you've always wanted.
Material possessions. Yeah.
Or even just having a picture-perfect life online.
The perfect Instagram feed.
Yes. But the video showed this graph
Oh.
of happiness levels over 50 years.
Wow.
And it's basically stayed the same,
Really?
even though we're making way more money than we used to.
That's wild. So how does that make sense?
That's where this idea of, and I'm quoting from the video again, changing the contents of consciousness comes in.
Ooh, okay.
So Sukhsat Mahali is saying true fulfillment, it doesn't come from getting more stuff.
I say
It comes from within, from how we're engaging our minds.
it's about changing how we experience the world, not just what's in it.
Yes. And that's where flow fits in.
Exactly.
I think I'm starting to get it.
Think about it. When you're really into something you enjoy and you're also good at it, you're not just passively watching TV or whatever.
Right.
You're actively doing something. You're creating. You're solving problems.
Yeah.
You're using your skills. You're pushing your abilities.
Right.
And Sukhsat Mahali, he believes that's where the lasting fulfillment comes from, that active engagement.
And that's the opposite of how a lot of us live today.
Yeah, it really is. We're so used to instant gratification, passive entertainment.
It's true. So you're saying, all that scrolling through social media, binge watching shows, that could be our minds, craving that flow state.
It's possible.
But we're just not getting the right kind of stimulation.
Exactly. It's like, remember that flow diagram from the video?
Yeah, with the channel.
Right, so you've got the flow channel, but below it, there's this apathy zone. And if the challenge is too low, we end up bored, apathetic.
So maybe we're living in that apathy zone more than we realize.
Yeah, and it's not just about being happy. It's about our brains needing to be challenged, to be engaged, to really thrive.
So if we're always bombarding our minds with stuff that doesn't require much effort,
Right, yeah.
are we almost training ourselves to not be able to find flow?
Now, that is a question worth thinking about.
Right.
And this is actually where that radio interview with Sudarshan gets super interesting.
Oh, yeah.
This guy, he seems to have figured it out.
Okay.
He structures his whole life around these flow principles.
Wow, so it's not just in his work, he applies it to everything.
Everything, from his research to music, even just relaxing, he finds a way to bring in flow.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
How do you flow while relaxing?
Uh-huh.
Those seem like opposites.
I know, it sounds kind of contradictory.
It does.
But that's what's so cool about it. It's not about forcing yourself into some specific activity.
Okay.
It's about understanding this connection between your skill level and the challenge of what you're doing.
And that's where that flow diagram comes in handy, right?
Exactly.
The flow channel.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
too easy, you're bored, too hard, you're stressed.
Exactly. And that diagram, it actually goes even deeper into those different states.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so let's unpack that diagram a bit more.
Okay, yeah. Let's do it. So you were asking about flow while relaxing.
Yeah. How do you, chill out but also be in flow? It seems counterintuitive.
It does, right.
Yeah.
But that's where this diagram also helpful. Visually, because it's not about saying, okay, for the next hour, you have to be doing this specific activity to be in flow.
Right.
It's more about understanding, no matter what you're doing, how your skills line up with the challenge of what you're doing.
Okay, so That flow channel on the diagram.
Exactly.
Like a sweet spot where the challenge is just right for how skilled you are.
Yes. Too easy, you get bored.
Right.
Too hard, you get stressed, you're overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's like walking a tightrope almost.
Yeah. It's about constantly kind of, I don't know, adjusting, being aware of, okay, am I slipping into boredom here? Or is this getting to be too much? I need to step back.
So you have to be really self-aware.
Yes. And that's what's so interesting about flow. It's not about just finding one spot and staying there forever.
It's a process.
Exactly. It's dynamic. You're always kind of pushing those boundaries a little.
Like the shoe swap Indians in the video.
Yeah. That's a great example, right?
They'd literally move their whole village
I know. Can you imagine?
every few decades just to keep things challenging.
I would not fly today, right? People would freak out.
Totally. Everyone wants comfort and stability.
Exactly. But it's interesting, like, they weren't just trying to be uncomfortable, you know?
Right.
They understood that to really grow, to be fulfilled, you got to adapt, face new things, even if it's a little scary.
So how do we apply that today?
Right, because we can't exactly be up and moving every few years.
Not unless you really love house hunting.
Uh-huh, exactly.
Eh.
But it's more about the mindset, you know?
Okay.
Like, within your own life, can you look for ways to challenge yourself?
Yeah, like what? Give me some examples.
It could be small things even. Trying a new recipe, learning a new skill,
Okay.
or even just, like, having a conversation with someone you totally disagree with.
Just to get a different perspective.
Exactly. And this is something that really stuck with me from the Sudarshan interview.
Yeah.
He was saying, you can't force flow, but you can set yourself up for it.
Oh, I like that.
Right. So
Yeah.
you can't will yourself to fall asleep, but you can make your bedroom nice and dark.
Create the right conditions.
Yes. And both the video and the interview, they talked about strategies for this.
Like what?
Well, minimizing distractions is huge, EE.
Which is so hard these days.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
But it could be simple things, like putting your phone on silent,
Yeah.
finding a quiet workspace, or just letting people know, like, hey, I need some uninterrupted time for
Right.
the next hour.
It's about being really intentional with your attention.
Yes. It's precious, you know.
It is.
And it's not about becoming a hermit. It's just about making that space for yourself to focus.
Sudarshan also said something interesting about choosing tasks that are a little bit out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
He compared it to weightlifting. You know, you can't keep lifting the same weight and expect to get stronger.
It's the same with our minds.
So it's that sweet spot on the diagram again.
There it is. That flow channel,
Mm.
pushing just beyond what's easy, but not so far that you freak out.
So you need that balance, that edge.
Exactly. And this is where mindfulness comes in, I think.
How so?
Well, Sudarshan talked about how important it is to be present in the process.
Oh, okay.
Not just fixated on the outcome, but really there in the moment.
He actually said his research is like a moving meditation.
I know, right? Like, we usually think of meditation as sitting still,
Right.
but he's saying it can be this active engagement too.
That's so interesting. So flow and meditation, maybe they're not that different.
Totally. Because they both come down to focused attention.
Oh, okay, I see that.
When you're in that flow state, your mind's not racing ahead. It's not dwelling on the past. It's just right there with what you're doing.
That makes sense, but how do we actually do that?
That's the million-dollar question.
Oh, our minds are so used to being all over the place.
Exactly. That's the challenge we all face now.
So how do we train our brains to be less all over the place and more, I don't know, flow ready?
That's the thing, right? It's like we want that flow state, but our minds are used to, like, snacking on distractions all the time.
Exactly. So how do we change that?
Well, it's interesting, you know, because it's not something you could just force to happen overnight. It's more like, think of it like training for a marathon.
Okay.
You wouldn't just show up on race day and expect to run 26 miles without any practice.
Definitely not.
You got to train, right?
Yeah.
Build up your endurance, work on your form.
Yeah.
And it's the same with flow. It's like we have to train our minds to become more focused, more present.
So it's not just about like turning off your phone and expecting to suddenly be in flow mode.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about strengthening those mental muscles, so to speak.
I like that. So how do we actually DO that?
Well, Sudarshan had some really interesting techniques in his interview.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
One that stood out to me was this idea of microflow.
Microflow. What's that?
So it's like finding those opportunities for focused attention, even in really everyday stuff.
Give me an example. I'm having trouble picturing it.
Okay, so say you're washing dishes,
Yeah.
right? Something we all do, probably mindlessly most of the time.
Totally guilty of that.
Right. But what if, instead of zoning out, You actually tried to bring your full attention to it.
Wait, so I'm supposed to find flow while scrubbing dishes?
Yes, exactly. It's about shifting your perspective, you know,
Okay.
like finding the challenge, the joy even, in that simple act.
I don't know if I'd call washing dishes joyful, but I get what you mean.
Uh-huh, right. But it could be as simple as focusing on the feeling of the warm water, the rhythm of your movements.
It does sound kind of meditative when you put it like that.
And that's the key. It's like bringing that mindfulness into those everyday moments.
So it's like practice for those bigger moments where you really want to find flow.
Exactly. The more we can bring that focused attention to those small stuff, the easier it becomes to do it with the big stuff.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like building up that mental stamina.
Yes. And, it makes me think about this whole thing with instant gratification, which we're all kind of addicted to these days.
Oh, for sure.
Like always looking for the quickest, easiest, most stimulating thing.
The path of least resistance.
Exactly. And it's almost like by doing that, we're actually making it harder for ourselves to experience flow.
Because our brains aren't being challenged enough.
Exactly. If we're always going for the easy way out, we're kind of stuck in that apathy zone of the flow diagram, even when we think we're having fun.
That's a really good point. So maybe finding flow is more about embracing a little discomfort.
In a way, yeah. It's not about seeking out suffering or anything,
Right.
but it's about recognizing that sometimes that feeling of truly being alive, it comes from pushing ourselves.
Stepping outside that comfort zone.
Exactly. Wrestling with those challenges and then coming out on the other side feeling like, yeah, I did that.
I like that. It's about the journey, not just the destination.
And the journey is often where the flow is hiding.
I love that. Okay, so to wrap things up here, it sounds like if we want to unlock that flow state,
Yeah,
we need to be more intentional, more mindful, and maybe a little braver in seeking out those challenges.
absolutely. It's about finding what lights you up, what makes you feel truly present and engaged.
And then diving in headfirst.
Exactly. Embrace those challenges, celebrate those victories, and remember, even washing dishes can be a flow state if you approach it with the right mindset.
Mind blown.
Yeah.
This has been amazing. I feel like I've learned so much, not just about flow itself, but about how to live a more engaged, fulfilling life.
Me too. And the best part is, this is just the beginning of the exploration.
Exactly. It's up to each of us to take these ideas and see what works for us.
Find your own flow.
Yes. So to everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And remember, the next time you find yourself reaching for your phone out of boredom or shying away from something challenging, think about this conversation.
What would it take to find your flow in that moment?
Exactly. You might be surprised at what you discover. Until next time, keep exploring, keep challenging yourselves, and keep seeking out those moments of flow.
See you next time.